Hi, I am Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. Welcome to my channel. I am so glad you're here. Today's video is all about how we can show up in real time with our own types of responses and boundaries. And it is from this book that I've used a lot, Surviving a Borderline Parent, How to Heal Your Childhood Wounds and Build Trust, Boundaries, and Self-Esteem. And so we're going to talk today about what they call the lemon technique, which is an enforcement tool for helping you manage these very difficult relationships in your life, especially the ones that you can't necessarily just move away from tomorrow, but that to honor that you do have choices you can make. And the lemon is an acronym for the steps you can take. And really quickly, please check out the links down below on the courses I've created. This one is called Remothered. It's about healing the inner child and inner parent and setting up your life in a way that honors that you are a worthy and valuable human. And then my flagship course called Borderline and Narcissistic Parents, Healing and Dealing with Your Trauma. And it is full of exercises, affirmations, videos, journal prompts, you name it. And then one more free course. Because the truth is that oftentimes we don't really know what to do with ourselves when we have these childhoods in our adult lives. We get stuck in these patterns and we feel very trapped. And I would say that is really true for many people I've seen, especially with parents who have, especially mothers or the primary caregiver, a more borderline presentation that remains untreated or narcissistic type, that the person that I've worked with, let's say, or that I know, is really struggling to really separate from these relationships because of their own fears, because of financial gain, because of geography in some way. And so it can feel really overwhelming and you can feel very trapped, much like in childhood. And it's really important to know that you are not trapped, that even though your brain feels like you are, that you have choices you can make. So now let's talk about this lemon technique, what you can do. So the idea is that you use the word lemon to remember, maybe visualize a lemon too, when you're in these situations with family or friends or whoever that you just don't know how to respond to, but you really want to work on your boundary setting and enforcing the things that you're trying to heal. Because nothing is worse than doing this work on yourself, on your childhood, and yet going back into those same difficult, toxic, hurtful, fragmented relationships. So let's say you are in a situation, I'll tell you like an example here. Let's say you are in a situation with a family member who has some kind of untreated disorder, who is very emotionally unsafe, and you, let's say, live down the block from them and they babysit sometimes. And right now you can't change that dynamic. Maybe you can't financially find a different babysitter, or you're working towards it. But in the meantime, you are visiting with them and they start on a topic or criticizing you or your parenting and in front of your children, or they're criticizing your children in some way, whatever it is, or your spouse, and you're trying to figure out what to do. So L is for the first thing, which is leave the room or situation. So the first thing you can do is say, you know what, mom or dad, I hear you, but I've got to go. I've got to go pick up groceries. I've got to go to the store. I have to go to the school and pick up something. Make an excuse, whatever it is, or you can say, I'm not going to engage in this conversation. That's a different level of pushing back. But either way, L, leave, remove yourself. Number 2, emotional distance. That's the E in lemon. Emotional distance. Reduce the amount of personal information you share. Limit the topics of conversation. I cannot repeat this one enough. So many times what has happened with these parents is that because it's not always bad and because they're really good at negativity, they are great to talk to when we are in a negative space. So let's say, going back to examples, I have a spouse and we all have our issues in relationships and I get mad at that person, and I used to always go to my, let's say, toxic parent, but I'm trying really hard not to do that. But because I've done that in the past, they will often, be ready to just pounce and talk trash and be mad at that person, right? And so what you have to start to work on is not telling that person that you're trying to set the boundary with when you're mad at your partner, if you're mad at your kids or upset or your friends, because they will use that to draw you in. And it might start with the discussion about this other person, but it will almost always go back to what you've done wrong, your role in things, or escalate some other conflict you've already had. So you want to limit the topic. So you're in your car, right? And you're so mad and you just want to call your mom like you used to do and tell her what a jerk your spouse is, but you don't. You put the phone down and instead you call a friend. You talk to yourself out loud in the car and say all the things you want to say. You talk to a therapist, whatever it is, but you don't go back in that same situation. You don't let them in. A lot of this healthy boundary situation is not going too much below the surface. So you don't bring up the conversation. And the other option is to limit the topic. So let's say that you're visiting with this person, you have to see them, and somehow your child says, I thought you were mad at daddy this morning, or something like that. And the toxic person says, oh, you were? And you just go, no, I wasn't. That was fine. I was just cranky this morning, whatever it is. And you remove yourself. You don't go, yeah, let me tell you the story and go into it. So you limit the topic. So emotional distance, right? M, move out of the house or away from the area. Now this is another level, but this is implying that you live with this person. And oftentimes for many reasons, like I said, from financial rewards to, let's say you're going to get their trust or their whatever, or you're renting a room from them or you're helping them out, you're living with them. You're too close to them. So one of your goals might be to move out, to move away from the area. A physical boundary, if it's possible, can be a great way to set the boundary with a very toxic parent or partner that you don't have to be around anymore. O is on your terms. Visits and interactions are your prerogative. So you set the pace. You say, hey mom, we're coming over for Thanksgiving, but we can only be there for 2 or 3 hours. And then maybe you used to go for 7 or 8 hours. Or I can only see you for coffee for 30 minutes. Or I can only talk on the phone, I have 10 minutes. It's a great excuse to say, I'm in the car, I'm on the way to an appointment, I only have blah, blah, blah time. The truth is that you can determine the time you spend in relationship with these people. It is your decision to make. But so often in childhood, you've been wired to respond to them, to rotate around what they need. So I don't care if you have to lie. I've told patients this a million times, that you're about to go into an appointment or you have to work, whatever it is, especially in the beginning as you work towards becoming more confident in your ability to set boundaries and self-advocate. Some parents will respond to that and they will say, I hear you, it's too much for you to talk for half an hour. But other parents will blow a gasket, right? What do you mean? Why can't you talk anymore? What are you saying? I want to see my grandkids on FaceTime. So you set the time. It is your decision to set the amount of time on your terms, whether it's phone calls, visits, celebrations, whatever it is. The last one is N, not answering, so that's the end of the lemon, or selectively answering calls, texts, and emails. So not answering, you do not have to answer every call, every phone call, every email, every text. In fact, you might want to train them over time that you only respond to certain things. I use this example a lot. It's like training a puppy when you're teaching people to set, your new boundaries. You have to continue to, set them and let them kind of push them, and then set them, let them push them, but you are teaching them what you will and won't respond to. So, for example, if your mom texts you, let's say her classic pattern is to text you a lot of really inappropriate stuff about your dad, you just stop responding to those texts. Over time, and you just don't respond. And then she says, why didn't you respond? Oh, I'm sorry, I was busy. And over time, she learns again and again that on those texts, you're not going to engage. Now, ideally, you would say something like, hey, mom, I know that you and dad have a difficult relationship, and I know that we've discussed him in the past, but I want to share with you that it is not comfortable for me for you to tell me about all the fights you get into with my dad. You guys are married. I love you both. And from now on, I'm not going to respond to those messages, but I will respond to other ones. And she goes, okay, fine, right? She doesn't like it. She says, fine. But then she keeps doing it. So my point is that you don't have to keep responding. You can not respond at all if you don't want to. You can not respond to anything if you don't want to. Part of this work is taking back for the first time, or actually having for the first time, your own agency in developing what part, if any, of the relationship you want to engage in, and to bring your own terms and know that you are allowed to have those terms in the first place. So, lemon, once again. L, leave the room or situation. E, emotional distance, reducing the topics or the amount of information you share. M, move out of the house or away from the area. Move your body out in some way. On your terms. Visits and other interactions, you get to determine what those are on your terms. And N, not answering or selectively answering any kind of communication. I think it's really important to remember all these things because I think we feel like we're powerless. We're just stuck in these relationships and there's nothing we can do about it. But the truth is, it's a whole process to set boundaries. And I do have a whole section in my course, this course, about how to look at those relationships, what kind of boundaries to set, where you want to set them, if you want to go no contact or not, what your options are. For many parents, they will respond to boundary setting and they will respond to surface relationships. But for many people, none of that works. And so our only option is to go no contact. And to be honest, if it's a very toxic relationship and they're not responding to respectful requests from you, time and time again, and there's a lot of toxicity, even though it can feel so, you can feel so guilty in the beginning, over time, the relief you feel from not being involved in the chaos and trauma, from my experience, both personally and professionally, can be truly life-changing. I'm not going to say that there's not a hurt there and a loss and a wondering sometimes and a lingering pain, but you're not in the manipulation and toxicity and chaos. And here's the bottom line. If you find yourself saying to people that you're really close to, I hate my parent or this person so much, I think about them not being here anymore, I feel terrible about it, or I can't wait for them to not be here anymore, and it is a constant kind of thing where you can say I hate them and you just get stuck in that, that's a huge sign that something is going on, because that is not what typical relationships look like. Yes, you can have, fights and disagreements, and oftentimes when kids are growing up and pushing away, it can feel like that, but this is a whole different thing. This is if you have a strong hatred, and maybe often a strong love as well, but a hatred, that is a huge sign that this technique, this lemon technique, among other types of healing, can be really powerful and healing for you in your life. So that's it for today's video. Please stay safe and well, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.